He was a good man. John, one of my patients, had been married to his wife, Carol, for over 40 years. He'd provided for his family, he'd been faithful, he loved her dearly, and yet they were sitting in my office in two separate chairs, a canyon of silence between them, on the verge of what I can only describe as an emotional divorce. Carol was the one who finally spoke, and her words, though quiet, were utterly devastating. She said, "Doctor, he doesn't see me anymore. We live in the same house, we sleep in the same bed, but we're just roommates. The intimacy, the spark, it's been dead for 10 years. It's not even about the sex anymore. It's about being touched like I matter." John was stunned. He looked at me, his face etched with confusion and hurt. He said, "But I tell her I love her every day. I try to initiate sex. What more does she want?" And right there, in that painful, honest moment, was the crux of a tragedy I have seen quietly unfold in the lives of thousands of men over 60. It's the tragedy of believing that intimacy is an event, a destination, rather than a language spoken in 1,000 small, almost invisible moments. It's the tragedy of forgetting the most powerful and potent tool you possess for connection, something that has nothing to do with your erections or your stamina. I'm talking about your tongue, but not in the way you've been conditioned to think. What I am about to share with you is the secret language of connection that your partner is silently, desperately craving. It's the difference between a relationship that survives and one that truly thrives, filled with the kind of passion and closeness you thought was reserved for your youth. This is the information that gets lost in the noise of pills and pumps, the truth that can save your relationship from the silent death of neglect. For those of you who are new to this channel, I am Dr. Liam. I am a board-certified sexologist and relationship counselor with over 3 decades of clinical experience. I have dedicated my entire professional life to helping men, particularly men in their golden years, navigate the complex and often misunderstood landscape of health, vitality, and intimacy. My mission here is simple: to pull back the curtain on the suppressed, overlooked, and sometimes uncomfortable truths that most of the medical establishment is too busy or too dismissive to discuss. Today's topic is one of the most important I have ever covered because it strikes at the very heart of why so many relationships wither, and it provides a simple, powerful, and immediate solution you can use tonight. Before we go any further, I want you to know this is a safe space. The conversations we have here are the ones husbands and wives are often too afraid to have with each other. If what I'm saying resonates with you, if you felt that quiet drift in your own relationship, I want you to do 2 things. First, take a deep breath. You are not alone. Second, gently tap that subscribe button. By doing so, you are not just joining a channel, you are joining a community of men who are choosing to fight for their vitality and their relationships. You are raising your hand and saying, "I want to learn. I want to be a better man, a better partner." So, what is this great secret? What is this profound act you can perform with your tongue that has the power to reignite a dying flame and create an unbreakable bond of intimacy? It is the art of non-genital oral affection. It is the conscious, deliberate, and masterful use of your lips and your tongue on areas of her body that most men completely ignore in their rush towards the finish line. We've been conditioned to believe that foreplay is a perfunctory step, a simple prelude to the main event. This is a catastrophic misunderstanding. For a woman, particularly a woman who has been in a long-term relationship, the journey is everything. The feeling of being desired, cherished, and explored is the main event. The physical act of intercourse is often just the final chapter of a story that you as her partner must write for her. And the pen you use to write that story is your focused, loving attention, expressed through touch. And here's the hard part. Most men are writing a terrible, predictable, and boring story. Today, we are going to change that. We are going to explore the forgotten zones of intimacy, the places where a single gentle touch from your tongue can say more than 1,000 empty words of "I love you." The first and perhaps most potent of these forgotten zones is the neck. I want you to stop for a moment and truly consider the neck. It is a column of profound vulnerability. It houses the carotid artery, pulsing with life just beneath the skin. It contains the larynx, the source of her voice. And neurologically, it is an absolute superhighway of pleasure, connected directly to the brain via the vagus nerve. When you place your attention, your breath, and your tongue on her neck, you are not just touching skin, you are communicating on a primal, deeply subconscious level. You are saying, I recognize your vulnerability, and I am here to cherish it, not exploit it. I am trustworthy. I am safe. This is an incredibly powerful message that bypasses her logical brain and speaks directly to her ancient reptilian core. So many men, when they do think of the neck, treat it like an afterthought, a quick, clumsy kiss while their hands are already heading south. This is a mistake. The price you pay for this neglect is incalculable. You are forfeiting the single greatest opportunity to build the kind of earth-shattering anticipation that makes intimacy truly unforgettable. You are essentially trying to light a fire with a single match in a rainstorm when you could be patiently building a roaring bonfire. The price she pays is feeling like an object, a checklist of parts to be serviced, rather than a whole person to be worshipped. This quiet neglect is what builds the walls of resentment, brick by silent brick. I had a couple, let's call them Mark and Susan, who came to me after 30 years of marriage. Mark was a classic alpha male, a successful businessman who approached intimacy with the same goal-oriented efficiency that had served him so well in the boardroom. He was a loving husband, but he was, in his own words, clueless about what Susan truly wanted. He told me, Dr. Liam, I do everything I'm supposed to. I kiss her, I touch her breasts, I go down on her, but she just lies there. It feels like she's a million miles away. Susan, sitting beside him, began to cry softly. She said, he's not wrong. I am a million miles away, because none of it feels like it's for me. It feels like he's just going through the motions to get to the end. I don't feel desired. I feel processed. The pain in her voice was palpable. So, I gave Mark a very specific piece of homework. I told him that for 1 week, all penetrative sex was off the table. His only goal was to rediscover his wife's body, starting with her neck. I instructed him, Mark, tonight I want you to ask your wife to simply lie down, and you are going to spend no less than 10 minutes exploring only the landscape from her collarbone to her earlobe. That is your entire world for 10 minutes. I taught him the techniques, not just kissing, but using the very tip of his tongue to trace the elegant line of her sternocleidomastoid muscle. I told him to use warm breath, to exhale softly against her skin and feel the goosebumps rise. I instructed him to use gentle, whisper-light kisses, as if he were trying to taste a rare and delicate fruit for the first time. I told him to find the sensitive hollow at the base of her throat and just rest his lips there, letting his warmth sink in. He was skeptical, to say the least. But he was also desperate. A week later, they returned to my office. Mark looked like a different man. He was smiling, truly smiling. He said, Doctor, it was unbelievable. The first night, she was tense. But I did what you said, and after about 5 minutes, I felt her just melt. I heard her sigh in a way I haven't heard in 20 years. She started to guide my head with her hands. By the end of the week, we felt like we were dating again. We haven't even had intercourse yet, but we've never felt more connected. What Mark discovered is the secret. The neck is not a stepping stone. It is a destination in and of itself. It is the gateway to her soul, and you must approach it with the reverence and patience it deserves. Forget your agenda. Your only goal should be to elicit that sigh, that melting surrender. When you achieve that, you have achieved true intimacy. The second overlooked zone, a place of almost shocking sensitivity, is the ears. Yes, the ears, and I'm not just talking about whispering sweet nothings, though that has its place. I am talking about using your tongue and lips to awaken a constellation of nerve endings that most men don't even know exist. The earlobe, the shell of the ear, the delicate skin just behind it, where it meets the jawline, these areas are exquisitely sensitive. For many women, stimulation here can be even more intense and arousing than direct genital contact. Think about it from a neurological perspective. The ears are our primary organs for processing vibration and sound. They are hardwired to be attentive, to pick up on subtle cues. When you introduce the warm, wet, gentle touch of your tongue to this area, you are creating a symphony of sensory input that can be overwhelmingly pleasurable. It's a form of what some people now call ASMR, or autonomous sensory meridian response, that tingling, deeply relaxing sensation that travels from the scalp down the spine. This is the biological reality of what you are tapping into. And here's the surprising part. It's not about being aggressive, it's about subtlety and variation. The price you pay for ignoring the ears is once again a loss of depth. You are playing a song with only one note when you could be a conductor leading a full orchestra. You are leaving one of the most powerful instruments of arousal sitting silent in its case. The price she pays is feeling that the act of love is loud, one-dimensional, and disconnected from the subtle electric current of her own body. This is how intimacy becomes a routine instead of an adventure. I want to tell you about another patient of mine, a gentleman in his late 60s named David. He was a quiet, gentle man who adored his wife Mary, but their physical relationship had dwindled to almost nothing. Mary had gone through a difficult menopause, and it had left her feeling disconnected from her own sense of desire. She told me, "I just don't feel sexy anymore. Dr. Liam, my body has changed, and the old ways just don't work for me." David felt helpless. He still saw the beautiful woman he married, but he didn't know how to reach her. I explained to David the power of these overlooked zones. I focused on the ears. I told him, "David, Mary feels that her body has betrayed her. You need to show her that it is still a place of immense pleasure, a place you find endlessly fascinating." I gave him a similar assignment to the one I gave Mark. His task was to focus solely on the area around her ears and her scalp. I instructed him to begin by gently running his fingers through her hair, massaging her scalp to release tension. Then to move to her ears. I told him to use the tip of his tongue to trace the outer ridge of her ear, the helix, to use his lips to gently take her earlobe between them, tugging ever so slightly, to whisper, but also to breathe, letting the warmth create a contrast against her skin, and most importantly, to pay attention to the area just behind the ear. A gentle kiss or a soft lick in that spot can send shivers down her entire body. David, being the gentle soul he was, took to this immediately. He reported back that the first time he tried it, Mary actually gasped. She told him afterwards, with tears in her eyes, "No one has touched me like that in my entire life." It wasn't about sex. It was about being seen. It was about being explored with a curiosity and tenderness that made her feel beautiful and desirable again, not in spite of her age, but because of the woman she had become. For them, it was the key that unlocked the door that had been closed for years. It proved to her that pleasure was still possible, that her body was not a source of shame, but a source of incredible sensation, waiting to be rediscovered. Now, I know there are men watching this who feel lost, who feel like the distance in their own relationships is too great to cross. You see other couples who seem to have it all figured out, and you wonder, what am I doing wrong? I want to pause here and ask you to do something for me and for this community. In the comments below, without sharing any personal details you're uncomfortable with, I want you to share a piece of your story. You can simply write, "I'm ready to learn," or "This is making me think." And if you have a question or a specific problem you're facing, write that down too. I read these comments. I use them to decide what topics we need to cover in future videos. Your voice, your struggle, matters here. By sharing, you not only help yourself, but you let another man know that he is not fighting this battle on his own. You become part of the solution. The third and final zone we will discuss today is perhaps the most overlooked of all, yet it is one that is steeped in deep symbolic and emotional power. I am talking about her hands, and more specifically, the inner wrists. We use our hands to navigate the world, to work, to create, to care for others. They are often ignored in the landscape of intimacy, seen as purely functional. This is a profound mistake. The hand is an extension of the heart, and the skin on the inside of the wrist is some of the thinnest and most sensitive on the entire body, with the pulse beating just beneath the surface. It is a place of immense vulnerability, just like the neck. When you take a woman's hand, turn it over, and place a soft, lingering kiss on her inner wrist, you are sending a message that is so deeply romantic, so full of care and reverence, that it can genuinely take her breath away. It's a gesture straight out of a classic romance novel for a reason. It is completely non-sexual, yet it is one of the most intimate acts you can perform. It is a gesture of pure, unadulterated affection. It says, I see all of you, not just the parts our culture deems sexual, but all of you. I cherish the hands that have held mine, that have raised our children, that have cared for me. The price you pay for ignoring this simple act is the loss of romantic tenderness. You might have a functional physical relationship, but you will lack the poetry, the grace note that elevates it from a physical act to a spiritual one. The price she pays is feeling that the only time you touch her with tenderness is when you want something from her. A kiss on the wrist wants nothing. It is a gift freely given, and that is why it is so powerful. I remember a man in his early 70s, Robert. His wife Helen had severe arthritis in her hands, which was a source of constant pain and self-consciousness for her. She felt, as she put it, old and gnarled. Their physical intimacy had stopped years ago, not from a lack of love, but because Helen felt deeply unerotic. She hid her hands whenever she could. Robert was heartbroken, watching the woman he loved retreat into herself. During our session, I suggested that Robert begin to worship her hands. I told him to forget about everything else and to simply make her hands feel beautiful again. I instructed him to gently massage them with warm lotion, to be mindful of her painful joints, and then to simply take her hand, turn it over, and kiss her inner wrist. I told him, "Robert, don't say a word, just let the action speak for you." He did this every night for a week. At their next appointment, Helen was the one who spoke first. She told me, "Dr. Liam, the first time he did it, I cried. All the shame I felt about my hands, it just seemed to melt away. He was kissing my pain. He was kissing my age. He was telling me he loved me, all of me, without saying a word." That simple, consistent act of tenderness completely changed the dynamic of their relationship. It led to them holding each other more, to cuddling in bed, and eventually to rediscovering a form of physical intimacy that worked for them. It all started not with a pill, not with a fancy technique, but with a simple, honest kiss on the wrist. It was a bridge back to each other, built with pure, unselfish affection. That is the power you are ignoring. The power to heal, to connect, and to love in a way that truly, deeply matters. So, let us bring this all together. What have we learned today? We have learned that the greatest tool for intimacy you possess is not your libido or your physical prowess, but your focused, curious, and tender attention. We've learned that the secret to unlocking a level of passion and connection you may have thought was lost to you forever lies not in the destination, but in the journey. It lies in rediscovering the forgotten landscapes of her body, the vulnerable column of her neck, the exquisitely sensitive shell of her ear, the symbolically powerful landscape of her hands and wrists. These are not mere stepping stones. They are profound destinations in their own right. By worshiping these areas with your lips and your tongue, you are communicating in a language older and more powerful than words. You are speaking a language of safety, trust, desire, and reverence. You are telling her, without a doubt, that she is seen, she is cherished, and she is the entire world to you in that moment. This is not a trick or a technique to simply get more sex. This is a fundamental shift in your entire approach to love and connection. It is the path to becoming the kind of man, the kind of lover that she will never, ever forget. Your challenge, starting tonight, is to choose one. Choose one of these zones and dedicate just 10 minutes to it. No goals, no expectations. Your only mission is to explore and to give pleasure. See her response, feel the change in the energy between you. That is where the magic begins. Do not let another day go by in the quiet tragedy of neglect. You have the power to change everything. You have the knowledge. Now all that is required is for you to act. Become the man who knows the secrets, who speaks the language of true intimacy. It is the greatest gift you can give to her, and ultimately to yourself. Thank you for your time and your courage to learn.